Hello my loves and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing my July reading wraps. Exciting! Um, I read, I have to count them. I'm sorry, I can't do maths. I read 5 books in July, so a little bit less than I normally would read, but one of the books was a struggle for me to get through and it took me a good 2 weeks. So that is the main reason why. I also can't read 2 books at once. I'm not one of those people that are very talented and can read 2 books at once. I feel like if I read 2 books at once, I will forget one of them and stop reading it. So normally I just read one book at a time, which does mean it's a little bit lower this month because it took me so long to get through one. Um, 4 of these books are actually in my summer reading vlog, which I will tag in the video. And so I'm not going to go into depth about some of these because, like I said, they were on the reading vlog. I go into full depth. You see the whole reading process in that video. So yeah, I'm going to start off with the ones that I read in the video and then I'm going to go over the one book that I didn't read in that video and I actually haven't read in any video, so it's the first time you guys are hearing of it. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first book I read in July, the one that took me about 2 weeks to read, is The Best Thing by Mariana Zapata. Now, I liked it. Okay, I'm not gonna go and say I hated it, I didn't like it, because that isn't true and I would be lying to you. I did like it. It's rated 3 stars, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. I'm really bad and I don't actually rate them when I like put them into my book Marie and my story graph. So I think I rated it 3 stars. It took me 2 weeks to read. Now, this wasn't shocking because I struggle with Mariana Zapata's writing. I find it quite slow, and so it takes me longer to read it. I read From Lukov with Love a few weeks ago, I was going to say, no, a few months ago, it was last year. Um, and I loved it. One of my favourite reads of the year, and that also took me 2 weeks to read because it was long. But I didn't mind that at the time because I was enjoying the book, and so I was fine with it. This one, I loved the middle of the book, but like the beginning and the end just felt like a bit of a drag. Um, it just felt long and it felt repetitive. And it felt like for a good half of the book, we were just doing the same thing every day. And I know that that's realistic, but I just found it a little bit too repetitive and a little bit too slow. I'm not going to talk about the plot in this book purely because they don't talk about the plot on the back of the book. And so I think it's meant to be a plot twist, a shock, a surprise. And so I'm not going to talk about it because I don't think the author would want people to. So yeah, I'm going to leave you to go in blind. It is a second chance romance. It's also a sports romance. But I feel like that's all I can say on it. Now, I rated it 3 stars because I enjoyed the middle. The ending was satisfying. I wouldn't read it again personally, or at least right now, I wouldn't read it again because it did end up feeling like a bit of a chore to read. But it was okay, you know, like there were bits that I loved and there were bits that I didn't. And I would recommend it to other people. And so that's why I'm rating it 3 stars. If one of my friends turned to me and was like, I want to read a slow burn second chance sports romance, I would recommend them this. And so that's why it's a 3 stars. But yeah, it definitely took me ages to read and it wasn't my favourite. It was a little bit of a letdown because I was so excited to read it. But yeah, the next book that I read in July is my favourite read of the year, actually, which is amazing. And it's my favourite read of the month. My first 6 star book. I have officially upped to 6 star ratings. Love that for me. And that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is a second chance romance. The preface is these friends that met in university go on holiday every year to this cottage. And this year is their last year in the cottage because the person who owns it, their family is selling it. Now, all these friends have a really close relationship, and 2 of them have been dating since university. They got engaged. And they actually broke up 6 months ago, but they haven't told anyone. The preface is that they still have to pretend to be dating, and each of them is still longing for the other, but doesn't think the other one is longing for them. And it's also about friendship and female friendship and growth and love and longing in a platonic sense as well as a romantic sense. And as well, like how hobbies can bring life back to you in hard moments. And I just found it gorgeous. I think Emily Henry's writing is just an absolute masterpiece. I think she is just one of the most talented writers I have read a book from, and I can't wait to read others. I did buy Funny Story yesterday and I brought book lovers last week, so I'm ready to do some reading vlogs on some more Emily Henry books. And 6 stars. I'm not going to talk loads because I talked a lot about it in the summer reading vlog, but 6 stars. It's the best book I've read this year. It almost made me fall in love with reading again a little bit because I was in a slump for like 3 months before picking up this book. And so it means a lot to me. It really means a lot to me. And I will never stop talking and recommending it to literally everyone. Yeah, I just really, really love it. It's breathtakingly beautiful. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me giggle, kicking my feet. It was on my mind 24/7 and it still is. And I just, it means a lot to me. The next book that I read in July is another 5 star read. Not quite as good as Happy Place, but still a 5 star read, and that is Picking Daisies on Sundays. Happy Place is where the good book streak started. That's all I'm gonna say. The rest of the reads for this month have been enjoyable, fun, good books, and I'm just feeling really good about it and really happy about reading at the moment. And yeah, I'm feeling good. Picking Daisies on Sundays was a 5 star read. I really loved it. It's about these two people who were childhood best friends and then it all fell apart. And then they meet again in New York a few years later and they fall back in love with each other. That's the premise of it. I'm not going to go into more because I think it's nice if you just discover the book along the way. Um, yeah, it's so romantic and sweet and a little bit cliche, but in the best way possible. It features themes of fashion design. You've got the little sewing machine there, which I really love because I actually spent some time studying costume design. So I really love that. It felt like I could relate to that a little bit. Obviously, not to the extent that she's working on it, but to the extent of knowing what things mean and knowing what these things do, and it just being like, oh my god, like I know that kind of life. And I loved that it's set in New York. I've actually been to New York. So they'd be talking about the places they were in, and I would be like, I've been there. Oh my god, I've actually been there. And that was just amazing. It made it feel almost homely, which is a funny word to say because I went to New York on holiday um, with some friends, but it really did feel homely because everything was familiar and I loved that. And it was just the most beautiful heartwarming romance story. I am going to say touch up the trigger warnings for this book just because there are certain scenes that are quite upsetting and there's a subplot of grief as well. So just touch up trigger warnings while you read that. Same with any book I recommend on my channel, just so you're aware and just so everyone can stay happy and healthy. But it was a really lovely, wholesome book, and the cover is just gorgeous. The cover reflects the book. Pretty cliche, but so good in the best way possible. Cliche is not a negative term, and I really hate when people say it is because it's just the most gorgeous, comforting plot to have in a book sometimes. I really enjoy it. It has some lovely, lovely scenes. Yeah, it was just, it's everything that you want from a romance. And I would say that if you're going to read 2 books this year, read Happy Place and Picking Daisies on Sundays. They just, I don't know, they're in the top books of the year, and I'm really happy about that. Picking Daisies on Sundays. I love it. And if you want to hear more about this, it's also in my summer reading vlog. The last book that I read in the summer reading vlog video is Tom Lake by Anne Blatchett. Now, this is a 4 star read. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this setting because the main character works in acting, which is the career field that I work in, and so that was really nice to see. A little bit upsetting at some points because it's set in the late 1900s, and so the work environment and everything was so different then. So yeah, again, just be aware of that when you come into it. But it was just a gorgeous book. It's a story of this main character talking when she's older to her three daughters about her life before she had them. And it's just the most beautiful tale of the identity of a woman before she becomes a mother, and the identity when she is a mother, and how mothers are still people, and the relationships between mothers and daughters, and just the experience of girlhood, and the experience of working in the acting career, and the experience of your relationships with your family and your connection with nature. And it's just gorgeous. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one. I did read bits of this book, but I read it with the audiobook also on. The audiobook is narrated by the amazing Meryl Streep, who just does it so much justice, goes above and beyond. It is amazing. I would not recommend just reading this. I would definitely say get the audiobook because it just makes it 100 times more enjoyable. But yeah, I rated this 4 stars because it didn't give me the same 24/7 thinking about it feeling as Picking Daisies on Sundays and Taffy Plays, but I still really, really enjoyed it. It's a contemporary piece of literature, I would say. I wouldn't call it a romance book, and it's just a beautiful story of storytelling and nostalgia and the parts of yourself that people don't actually know because you haven't told them, you know. I think there's a lot of things in our lives that we just forget to tell people, and then you kind of forget that they don't actually know that about you. And I think that's just a really beautiful story of getting to know someone that you've had in your life for years and never thought to ask these questions. And yeah, it's gorgeous. So those are all the books that I read in my summer reading vlog, and I will now get on to the one book that I actually just finished that I haven't actually read in a video. That book is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is a cowboy romance featuring this celebrity champion bull rider and the daughter of his agent that has been ordered to work with him to make sure he keeps his reputation pristine. And it's just a really good romance. You know me, I love the cowboy romance books, I love the ranch settings, I find them so cozy and wholesome, and this does have that, which is gorgeous. I also just love the couple in this. I think it's so good and I think it's really well done. It is spicy, I'm gonna warn you, because I know some people don't like reading spice, which is absolutely completely fine, and I know that some people might want to recommend this to another person who wouldn't want to be reading spice, so I'm just gonna let you guys know. But it is a really good cowboy romance book. We know I love my cowboy romance books. It felt almost cozy because of the ranch setting. It was really nice to see the female character in a really strong career. That was absolutely great to see, and I just really loved it. I loved the elements of self discovery, identity, I loved the elements of family and found family, the ranch setting. Yeah, it's pink. We all know I love the colour pink. And it was just a really quick read. I read it in 3 days, which is quite impressive because I was literally working or doing something on each of those 3 days. So I managed to squeeze it in amongst all of that and still finish it. So I'm really proud of myself actually. And I just really loved it. I am going to continue with the series. I am going to rate it a 3 stars because I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I think I overhyped it in my head because of all the hype that it does get. So I'm going to rate it a 3 stars. I still liked it. I still enjoyed it. I think it was still a fun read. I just wasn't in love with it like I am with Happy Place because now I just compare every single book to Happy Place. But it is going to be a 3 star. That's still a good book. I think some people think that 3 star rating isn't a good rating. I still think it is. It still means it's a good book. It still means I enjoyed it. So yeah, that's Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I will be continuing on in the series, hopefully in August if I get through my August TBR, which is another video on my channel that you guys can go and watch. So yeah, those are the books that I read in July. So in total, I read 4 romances and 1 contemporary piece of literature, and all of them were really enjoyable. Apart from one, maybe, but I still liked it. I just don't think I'd read it again. I really hope you guys like this video. I'm sorry it was a little bit short. If you want to learn more about some of these books, go over and watch my summer reading vlog. And if you want to learn more about future books that I'm going to read, go ahead and watch my August TBR. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I will see you guys soon in another video. Goodbye, my loves.